What if I told you that one specific vitamin, often overlooked and underappreciated, could help protect your brain from memory loss, support sharper thinking, and even reduce your risk of Alzheimer's? It may sound surprising, but this vitamin plays a key role in mental clarity, focus, energy, and long-term brain health. And yet, millions of people over 60 are running low on it without even knowing. I'm talking about vitamin B12. This essential nutrient acts like a power source for your brain. It supports your neurons, strengthens memory, regulates mood, and helps your brain recover while you sleep. It even plays a role in oxygen delivery and protecting the brain's physical structure. But here's what most people don't realize. As we age, our ability to absorb B12 naturally from food begins to decline. That means even people with a healthy diet can become quietly deficient, and that deficiency can affect everything from memory to mood to sleep quality. In today's video, we're going to explore 10 powerful, science-backed ways that vitamin B12 supports your brain health, especially after 60. And stay with us until the very end, because we're also going to share how you can naturally restore your B12 levels, including the best foods, supplements, and practical tips to help your brain thrive. No hype, no medical jargon, just the science, explained clearly, and what you need to know to take action today. So if you've been feeling mentally foggy, emotionally off, or more forgetful than usual, this might be the most important information you hear all year. But before we begin, a quick reminder. This video is for educational purposes only. It's not medical advice. Always speak to your doctor before making any changes to your supplement or health routine. All right, let us get started with the first key benefit of vitamin B12 for your brain and why it might be your strongest natural ally in staying mentally sharp. Have you ever had one of those moments where you walk into a room and immediately forget why you went in there? Or maybe you've noticed it's harder to stay focused during conversations. You find yourself rereading the same paragraph in a book, or spacing out during a movie, unable to follow the plot. These moments might seem small, but over time, they can become frustrating. And here's the truth. They're not just signs of getting older. Often, they raise signs that your brain isn't getting the energy it needs to operate at full speed. And that's exactly where vitamin B12 comes in. You see, your brain is like the engine of a car. It needs fuel to run. And one of the most important fuels it uses is something called ATP, short for adenosine triphosphate. A major study published in the journal Neurology in 2011 looked at adults with low or borderline B12 levels. The researchers found that these individuals had a significantly higher risk of brain shrinkage and cognitive decline, even if their B12 levels were technically within the normal range. Think of ATP as your body's biological battery, or age, or poor sleep. Every single cell in your brain and your body runs on ATP. It powers your thoughts, your movements, your memory, and even your mood. And guess what? Vitamin B12 is essential for making ATP. And it starts conserving energy by cutting back on functions like memory recall, focus, and even emotional regulation. Without enough B12, your body produces less ATP, and that can lead to a kind of mental power outage, what many people experience as brain fog, fatigue, slow thinking, and poor concentration. This isn't just theoretical. In other words, what doctors used to call low normal, B12 might actually not be enough to protect your brain. Even mild insufficiency can reduce brain energy and focus. So if you've felt mentally sluggish lately, maybe it is harder to find the right words, remember names, or keep your thoughts organized, it might not just be stress. It might be that your brain is low on fuel and vitamin B12 is the missing ingredient. Let me put it another way. You wouldn't expect your phone to work well on 10% battery, right? Well, when your B12 levels drop, your brain might be operating on low battery mode. The good news: replenishing your B12 can often restore that brain energy, sometimes dramatically. Several clinical trials have shown that B12 supplementation, even in people without full-blown deficiency, can improve mental clarity, processing speed, and overall cognitive energy in older adults. And unlike caffeine or stimulants, B12 works at the cellular level, building long-lasting energy by supporting the body's natural pathways. This benefit alone, more energy in your brain, sharper thinking, and less mental fatigue, makes B12 a top priority for anyone over 60. And we're just getting started, because the next benefit might be even more important. As we get older, it's common to lose a bit of brain volume. This gradual shrinkage happens in everyone to some degree. But in some people, especially those with poor nutrition or low B12 levels, the process happens much faster, and when your brain shrinks faster than normal, it affects your memory, your ability to think clearly, and even how quickly you respond to the world around you. But here's something hopeful. Research now shows that vitamin B12 can actually help slow this brain shrinkage. It's not just about improving how you feel today, it's about protecting the physical structure of your brain over time. A major study published in the journal Neurology in 2008 followed a group of seniors over several years. The researchers discovered that people with higher B12 levels had significantly less brain shrinkage than those with low levels. In fact, those with low B12 lost brain volume at nearly twice the rate. That's not a small difference, it's a major impact. So, what's going on here? One of the key reasons is something called homocysteine. It's a natural byproduct in your blood that tends to build up as we age. High levels of homocysteine are toxic to brain cells. They trigger inflammation, damage blood vessels, and speed up brain atrophy. Vitamin B12 plays a critical role in converting homocysteine into a harmless substance. Without enough B12, homocysteine rises and your brain becomes more vulnerable. In this way, B12 acts like a natural defense system. It helps keep inflammation down, protects neurons, and reduces the pace of brain shrinkage, especially in memory-related areas like the hippocampus. And here's something most people don't know. As we age, our stomachs produce less acid, which is needed to absorb B12 from food. That means even people with healthy diets can become B12 deficient without realizing it. So if you're over 60 and concerned about memory loss, early signs of cognitive decline, or brain fog, keeping your B12 levels in a healthy range might be one of the most important decisions you make for your long-term brain health. This benefit is not just about preventing disease. It's about giving your brain the support it needs to stay strong, sharp, and functional year after year. And now that we've seen how B12 protects your brain structure, let's move to something just as critical: how it helps you form and retain new memories. Have you ever noticed that you can remember things from 30 years ago, but forget what you did yesterday? That's a common experience for many people over 60. And while it can feel frustrating, it's not just random. It has to do with how your brain forms new memories and how vitamin B12 helps make that process possible. Let's break it down. Every thought you have, every name you try to remember, and every new fact you try to learn, all of it depends on tiny electrical signals traveling between neurons in your brain. For those signals to travel smoothly, your brain needs something called myelin. It's a protective coating that surrounds your nerve cells, kind of like insulation around electrical wires. And here's the key: vitamin B12 is essential for making and maintaining that myelin. When you don't have enough B12, the myelin begins to break down. That slows the signals between neurons, disrupts memory formation, and causes delays in thinking. It's like trying to use a phone line with frayed wires. The message gets through, but it's slow, weak, and sometimes gets lost. A well-known study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition looked at older adults who had trouble with short-term memory. Many of them had low B12 levels even without showing obvious symptoms of deficiency. After taking B12 supplements, their verbal memory and recall improved significantly. We're not just talking about remembering facts from a textbook. We're talking about real-life memory. Remembering names, appointments, where you put your keys, what you were going to say. That feeling of being mentally organized again. And it's not just about older adults with memory problems. Even healthy seniors with subtle cognitive decline often show improvements when B12 levels are optimized. So if you've ever said something like, "I just can't hold on to things the way I used to," don't assume it's just aging. In many cases, it's your brain asking for support, and B12 may be the missing piece. By helping rebuild myelin and speed up neural communication, B12 supports new memory formation, better recall, and smoother thinking, and as we'll see in the next section, this support doesn't stop at memory. B12 also plays a powerful role in how you feel emotionally and how your brain responds to stress. Memory and mood are more connected than most people realize. If you've been feeling forgetful, mentally cloudy, or emotionally drained, it's not always just about memory. Sometimes it starts with your mood and how your brain handles stress and inflammation. Here's the surprising connection. Vitamin B12 plays a major role in producing two key chemicals in your brain, serotonin and dopamine. These are your feel-good neurotransmitters. They help regulate mood, focus, motivation, and emotional balance. When B12 levels drop, production of serotonin and dopamine also drops. That can lead to low mood, irritability, anxiety, and a general lack of motivation, the kind of emotional state that makes it harder to focus, remember things, or stay mentally sharp. In fact, a study published in the Journal of Psychopharmacology found that seniors with low B12 levels were significantly more likely to experience depression, anxiety, and cognitive impairment. But after correcting the deficiency, both their mood and memory improved, and there's another important layer here. Low B12 doesn't just affect mood. It also increases inflammation in the brain. When your brain is inflamed, it doesn't function at full capacity. The communication between neurons slows down. Memory formation becomes weaker, and the risk of long-term damage rises. Researchers have found that vitamin B12 helps lower certain inflammatory markers in the brain, like interleukin-6 and TNF-alpha. These are chemicals that, when elevated, are commonly seen in people with dementia and Alzheimer's disease. By reducing inflammation, B12 supports a calmer, healthier brain environment. It helps your brain work more efficiently and respond better to stress emotionally and cognitively. This is especially important for people over 60 because emotional stress tends to hit harder and last longer. And the older brain is more sensitive to inflammatory damage. So if you've been feeling mentally foggy or emotionally out of balance, the cause might not be emotional at all. It might be physical. It might be low B12. Supporting your brain with the right nutrients helps you feel better, think better, and remember more, because a stable mood is the foundation for sharp thinking. And that brings us to one of the biggest risk factors in brain aging, one that most people have never even heard of. It's called homocysteine, and B12 has a powerful role in keeping it under control. If you've never heard of homocysteine, you're not alone. It's a word that rarely comes up in everyday conversations. But for brain health, especially after 60, it's one of the most important markers to understand and control. Homocysteine is a type of amino acid that forms in your body when you digest protein. In small amounts, it's harmless. But when levels get too high, especially in older adults, homocysteine becomes toxic. And here's the concerning part. High homocysteine is directly linked to a greater risk of Alzheimer's disease, stroke, and cognitive decline. In one study published in the American Journal of Psychiatry, seniors with elevated homocysteine had double the risk of developing Alzheimer's over just 5 years. Now here's where vitamin B12 becomes critical. Along with folate and vitamin B6, B12 helps convert homocysteine into methionine, a beneficial compound involved in brain repair. Without enough B12, the conversion doesn't happen efficiently. Homocysteine builds up, and your brain pays the price. Think of homocysteine as acid rain for the brain. It erodes the blood vessels, damages neurons, and inflames the areas responsible for memory and focus. B12 is your natural defense. It helps lower homocysteine levels, reduce inflammation, and keep your brain's environment stable and healthy. And here's something important to remember, especially right now. Later in this video, we'll show you how to increase your B12 levels naturally. That includes the best foods, lifestyle habits, and supplement forms to help you restore balance safely and effectively. So stay with us. Because protecting your brain from homocysteine is one thing, but knowing exactly how to do it is what makes the real difference. And speaking of protection, the next benefit takes us to the core of your memory center, and how B12 keeps it working even as you age. Inside your brain, there's a small but powerful region that plays a central role in learning and memory. It's called the hippocampus. This is where new information is processed, stored, and retrieved. It helps you remember names, directions, events, and conversations. Without a healthy hippocampus, even simple tasks like following a recipe or recalling someone's birthday can become difficult. And here's the issue. The hippocampus is also one of the first areas to suffer damage in conditions like Alzheimer's disease. That's why protecting it is so important, especially as we age. Research shows that vitamin B12 supports the structure and function of the hippocampus by helping maintain healthy nerve connections. A recent study published in Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience used brain scans to examine older adults. The researchers found that people with higher B12 levels had stronger connections between neurons in the hippocampus and other memory-related regions of the brain. This means better communication between brain cells. And that translates to faster thinking, better recall, and stronger learning capacity even into your 70s, 80s, and beyond. But how does B12 make this happen? It comes back to what we discussed earlier, myelin. That protective coating around your nerves helps carry signals from one neuron to another. And without enough B12, myelin breaks down. As a result, brain cells begin to lose their ability to communicate efficiently. Over time, that weakens the connections inside your hippocampus. And once those connections begin to break down, so does your ability to create and retrieve memories. By supporting the integrity of myelin and reducing inflammation, B12 helps your hippocampus stay strong and active. It's like reinforcing the bridges that carry important information from one part of your brain to another. This kind of protection doesn't just help prevent disease. It helps you stay mentally engaged in daily life. It keeps you alert during conversations. It helps you continue learning new things, enjoying hobbies, and making decisions with confidence. And that's what real brain health is about, not just avoiding decline, but continuing to live fully and independently as you age. But what if memory problems have already started? Can B12 still help? The next benefit answers that question and brings us into one of the most hopeful areas of research. Let's say you've already noticed some early warning signs. You forget appointments more often. You lose your train of thought mid-sentence. You repeat stories without realizing. These changes may feel small at first, but they can be unsettling. And here's the good news: even if memory issues have already begun, vitamin B12 can still help slow the decline and, in some cases, improve daily brain function. This isn't just speculation. It's backed by clinical trials. A double-blind, placebo-controlled study published in PLOS One followed older adults with mild cognitive impairment, a condition that often precedes dementia. Over the course of 2 years, participants received daily supplements containing vitamin B12, folate, and vitamin B6. The results were clear. Compared to those who took a placebo, the group receiving the vitamins had slower brain shrinkage, better memory performance, and improved ability to carry out everyday tasks. That means less mental fog, more clarity, and greater independence. What made this study especially powerful was the fact that it focused on people already showing signs of memory loss. So it wasn't just about prevention. It was about intervention, and the earlier that support begins, the better the outcome. Because once memory problems advance to more serious conditions, they become harder to manage. But when you address nutrient deficiencies early, especially B12, you give your brain the tools it needs to fight back. It's also important to understand that this support doesn't work in isolation. Think of B12 as part of a team. It works best when combined with other healthy habits like regular movement, good sleep, mentally stimulating activities, and emotional well-being. But without B12, that whole system can start to fall apart quietly in the background, and unfortunately, most people don't realize they're low until symptoms show up. That's why taking action early, even before memory loss begins, is so important. B12 isn't a miracle cure, but it can be a powerful tool to protect what you still have, slow further decline, and keep your mind working for years to come. And speaking of brain protection, The next benefit might surprise you because it happens while you sleep. You might think that memory and sleep are two separate issues. But the truth is, they're deeply connected, because while you sleep, your brain goes to work. During deep sleep, especially in the later stages of the night, your brain performs critical housekeeping. It clears out waste products, repairs damaged neurons, and consolidates memories, moving them from short-term storage to long-term preservation. This process is essential for mental clarity, emotional balance, and learning. And without it, your brain starts falling behind. But here's the twist. Vitamin B12 plays a direct role in supporting your sleep-wake cycle and in promoting the deep, restorative rest your brain needs to function at its best. How does it do that? B12 helps regulate the production of melatonin, the hormone responsible for managing your internal clock. That clock controls when you feel sleepy, when you wake up, and how deeply you sleep. In a study published in the journal Sleep and Biological Rhythms, researchers found that older adults with low B12 levels were more likely to experience poor sleep quality, difficulty falling asleep, and daytime fatigue. But when those participants began supplementing with B12, many saw measurable improvements, not just in sleep, but also in their memory and energy during the day. That's because poor sleep does more than make you tired. It disrupts the very process that allows your brain to store new information and clear out harmful waste. One of the most important systems activated during deep sleep is called the glymphatic system. It acts like a cleaning crew, flushing out toxins including beta-amyloid, the sticky protein that builds up in the brains of people with Alzheimer's. But this system only works during deep sleep. If your sleep is shallow, fragmented, or cut short, those toxins linger. And over time, they cause real damage. That's why B12 matters. It supports sleep onto levels. First, by enhancing melatonin production, it helps you fall asleep more easily and stay asleep longer. Second, by reducing brain inflammation and supporting nerve repair, it allows your brain to heal and recover while you rest. So if you're over 60 and dealing with poor sleep, foggy mornings, or memory slips that seem worse after a bad night, B12 may be part of the answer. Better sleep means better memory. And better memory starts with giving your brain the rest and tools it needs to repair itself. And speaking of tools, the next benefit highlights how B12 helps deliver something essential to your brain every single second, and that something is oxygen. Have you ever woken up after a full night's sleep, but still felt mentally tired? You're not alone. That foggy feeling, the kind where your thoughts are slow, words don't come easily, and even simple tasks feel like a chore, isn't always about lack of sleep. Sometimes it's about oxygen. Your brain is an oxygen-hungry organ. Even though it only makes up about 2% of your body weight, it uses around 20% of your total oxygen supply. That's a massive demand, and if your brain isn't getting enough oxygen, even temporarily, you'll feel it. Your concentration dips. Your memory slows down. Your mood shifts, and this is where vitamin B12 quietly plays a powerful role. B12 is essential for producing healthy red blood cells. These cells carry oxygen from your lungs to every part of your body, including your brain. When B12 levels drop, your red blood cells become larger and less efficient. This condition is called megaloblastic anemia, and even in mild cases, it can reduce how much oxygen your brain receives. This oxygen shortage affects your neurons, the very cells responsible for thinking, remembering, and staying alert. So if your brain isn't getting the oxygen it needs, your mental performance suffers. You may notice slower reaction time, forgetfulness, poor decision-making, and even emotional symptoms like irritability or sadness. A clinical study published in the Journal of the American Geriatric Society found that older adults with higher B12 levels had better attention spans, faster processing speed, and stronger working memory, and improved oxygenation was a key reason why. Let's make it simple. Imagine trying to run a marathon while breathing through a straw. That's what it's like for your brain when red blood cells can't deliver enough oxygen. B12 fixes this at the source. It supports the production of strong, healthy red blood cells. It helps circulate oxygen efficiently to the brain. And it keeps your mental energy stable throughout the day. And here's something critical to understand. Many people over 60 are B12 deficient, even if their lab tests say they're normal. That's because aging reduces your ability to absorb B12 from food. So symptoms can appear long before a test shows anything wrong. If you're dealing with brain fog, fatigue, or that frustrating sense that your thoughts just aren't as sharp, don't overlook B12 by improving oxygen delivery. This vitamin helps you feel more awake, more present, and more capable, not just physically, but mentally. And with that, we've reached the final benefit, one that ties everything together and looks at the long-term picture of brain health as we age. By the time you reach your 60s and 70s, your brain has already lived through decades of experience. It's handled stress, processed emotions, learned new things, adapted to changes, and carried you through millions of decisions. That kind of work leaves a mark. Over time, the brain naturally faces wear and tear. Its ability to form new connections, something called neuroplasticity, begins to slow. Inflammation increases. Free radicals cause damage. And if left unsupported, the brain gradually loses its edge, but that process doesn't have to happen quickly. And it certainly doesn't have to mean losing yourself. Here's where vitamin B12 makes a powerful difference. Studies show that B12 doesn't just help with memory or energy in the short term. It also plays a critical role in slowing the overall aging of the brain, preserving both structure and function. In a 5-year study published in Neurobiology of Aging, researchers followed hundreds of older adults. Those with higher B12 levels and lower homocysteine had significantly slower rates of memory decline. They performed better on tests of language, attention, and executive function. Even more impressive, brain scans showed that people with healthy B12 status had more preserved gray matter volume, especially in areas responsible for thinking, problem-solving, and memory. Gray matter is essential. It's where most of your brain's processing power lives. And as we age, it naturally shrinks. But this shrinkage can be slowed and, in some cases, minimized when your brain has the right nutrients. B12 works by protecting neurons from oxidative stress, reducing inflammation, and supporting detoxification pathways in the brain. It helps repair damaged cells. It supports healthy DNA expression. And it fuels the production of neurotransmitters that keep your mind engaged. Even modest improvements in B12 levels can make a difference. Better recall, clearer thinking, improved decision-making, and perhaps most important of all, maintaining your independence, identity, and quality of life as you age. It's like giving your brain the tools it needs to stay strong. Not just today, but for the long haul. And that's the heart of this message. B12 isn't about quick fixes or miracle cures. It's about long-term support, working with your body, not against it, to keep your mind sharp, capable, and resilient, because growing older doesn't mean growing weaker. With the right support, your brain can continue to grow, adapt, and thrive at any age. Let's take a moment to recap what we've uncovered in this video. We explored 10 powerful ways that vitamin B12 supports your brain health. Especially after age 60, it boosts brain energy and sharpens focus. It protects your brain from shrinkage and structural decline. It improves memory formation and short-term recall. It supports emotional stability and reduces brain inflammation. It lowers homocysteine, a silent but serious Alzheimer's risk factor. It strengthens nerve connections in the hippocampus, your memory center. It slows down cognitive decline, even in seniors already at risk. It supports deep sleep and overnight brain repair. It enhances oxygen delivery to your brain, fueling mental clarity. And it helps slow the overall aging of your brain, protecting your thinking for the years ahead. That's a lot of power packed into one essential vitamin. And now comes the most important part. You might be asking, how can I get more of this vitamin naturally? Let's walk through it together. Vitamin B12 is found primarily in animal-based foods. That's because it's made by bacteria and stored in the tissues of animals. If you eat a typical Western diet, you may be getting some B12, but the real issue is absorption. Many people over 60 benefit from a high-quality B12 supplement, not because of diet, but because of impaired absorption. Look for these forms. Methylcobalamin, the active, bioavailable form preferred for brain health. Cyanocobalamin, more common, but maybe less effective in some seniors. Sublingual tablets or liquid drops absorbed under the tongue, bypassing digestion, B12 shots or high-dose oral capsules used in clinical settings for people with severe deficiency. Talk to your healthcare provider before starting any supplement, especially if you take medication or have underlying conditions. As we age, our stomachs produce less stomach acid, an intrinsic factor to things required to absorb B12 from food. So even if you eat enough, your body may still struggle to use it effectively. Here are the best natural sources of vitamin B12. Top foods rich in B12. Beef liver, one of the most concentrated sources available. Sardines, high in B12. And omega-3s, salmon and trout, excellent for brain health overall. Tuna, especially fresh or canned in water. Eggs, particularly the yolk. Dairy such as milk, cheese, and plain yogurt. Fortified foods including certain breakfast cereals, nutritional yeast, and plant-based milks. Check the label if you follow a vegetarian or vegan diet, or if you're over 60. It's especially important to look for fortified foods or consider supplementation. Many people over 60 benefit from a high-quality B12 supplement, not because of diet, but because of impaired absorption. Look for these forms. Methylcobalamin, the active, bioavailable form preferred for brain health. Cyanocobalamin, more common, but maybe less effective in some seniors. Sublingual tablets or liquid drops absorbed under the tongue. Bypassing digestion. B12 shots or high-dose oral capsules used in clinical settings for people with severe deficiency. Talk to your healthcare provider before starting any supplement, especially if you take medication or have underlying conditions. Your brain is one of your most valuable assets. And the choices you make today can help determine how sharp, focused, and independent you stay in the years ahead. Vitamin B12 may not be flashy, but it's foundational. And when supported properly, it can make a real difference, not just in how you think, but in how you feel, how you sleep, how you move, and how you live. So take action, check your B12 levels, choose foods that nourish your brain, and give your body the tools it needs to support a healthy, active mind naturally. If this video helped you, consider liking, subscribing, or sharing it with someone you care about. You never know who might need this message today. Thank you for watching, and take care of your brain. It's the only one you've got.